Recently, I ordered a book written by Don Reed, who was the lead singer for the Statler Brothers, what used to be the Statler Brothers. They're now retired. But the book is entitled Life Lessons, and I'm still reading through it and enjoying it a lot. In that book, he tells of a meeting that the Statler Brothers had in their offices. This was many years ago with a business associate. And this business associate showed up at their offices with a cousin or a nephew who was visiting with them over the weekend. And while the Statler Brothers and this business associate were engaged in their meeting, the relative of the business associate was wandering the halls of their offices, just looking over things, and their halls were lined with gold albums that they had earned. Well, after the meeting was over, they all met out in the hallway and exchanged their farewells, and they all left, or at least the businessman did. And later that night, about the middle of the night, their office was broken into. And someone, in doing so, naturally set off the alarm system. But they snatched a number of the gold albums off the walls and made off with them before the police was able to show up. The police determined that the thief knew what he was doing, that he had cased the offices, that he knew just how much time he would have to get in there and to grab what he wanted and to get out before they could show up. Now, the Statler Brothers figured they knew who did it. They figured it was the young cousin or nephew of their business associate. But they couldn't prove it. And the police never found the thief, was never found. But the thing about it all is that Don Reed said, the lesson that he learned from this was that the joke was really on the thief, because gold records are not what they seem. In fact, they're really not gold at all. They're just albums that are colored gold. That's all they are. They're housed in a nice little frame, and he said that was the most expensive thing that the thief got, was the frame. But there's no value in the albums except the honor that they reflect. The sales of albums, that's all they are. But the thief didn't know that. The thief made off with any number of gold albums, thinking that he was going to get rich off of a stack of gold. And in reality, all he got was about $20 worth of nothing. Well, they were able to replace the albums, no problem. But Don Reed said this. He said, all that glitters is not gold. And he said, sometimes people think that's a statement from the Bible, but he said, don't waste your time trying to find it. It's William Shakespeare that said it. All that glitters is not gold. But then he also quoted Jesus. He quoted Jesus in John 7, verse 24, where Jesus said, judge not by appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Now, I want us to go to John 7, 24 tonight with that little background. And in John 7, leading up to verse 24, Jesus had healed a man on the Sabbath, and again, that stirred up all kinds of controversy. But Jesus said, I want you to think about something. He said, I did one work, and you all marvel, in verse 21. Moses therefore gave you circumcision, not that it was from Moses, but from the fathers, and you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath, so that the law of Moses should not be broken, are you angry with me because I made a man completely well on the Sabbath? Now, pause for a moment and get the picture. That Jesus said, you know, you people circumcise your baby boys on the Sabbath day, and you don't think anything of it. You would do anything to avoid the appearance of work on the Sabbath day, and yet you'll do that, and you have no issues with it. But then Jesus comes along and he heals a man on the Sabbath day, and you have an issue with that. It's amazing the things that Jesus had to deal with among people in his day and time. And that was a controversy. And Jesus, from that background, Jesus made the statement in verse 24, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. That's what I want us to think about tonight. What is righteous judgment? We all need to engage in it. Don Reed quoted that verse with reference to their offices being broken into, their gold albums being stolen, and those gold albums really being worthless in terms of monetary value. But they look like something important. I've been before I seen these gold albums. I thought the gold. I didn't know different. Is that or not? No. Just righteous judgment. What does that mean? There is a judgment wrong. We know that. If we have a problem being critical people, then we need to read Matthew 7:1-5. And we need to study very closely. If we have a problem talking other people down, then we need to read James 4, verses 11 and 12, about judging your brother. And James' basic point is, do not judge your brother. If we have an issue with people dying to do a certain thing, with a realm of judgment, for example, why should I judge somebody who decides that they want to be a vegetarian? What should that matter to me? Well, that all knows that question. Romans 14, 1-4. Somebody chooses to eat vegetables, right? Paul says, don't judge them that matter. So there are judgments that are wrong. Know that. We understand it very well. And I hope that we try not, I hope we try really hard not to engage in such things. I know it's education and right, I understand that. But the judgment that is right. And Jesus, in John 7:24, these people said, judge according to appearance, judge righteous judgment. Now, that's a principle. Apply it to other things, or no, not. If I judge righteous judgment in life, how do I go about doing that? What does that involve for me? Am I in situations at times when I need my judgment? Would be righteous judgment. Of course. You're in situations like that all the time. For example, all I'm going to do tonight is take you Bible verses and have testimony Bible with you. You'll follow along with me. And you want to just notice verses. We're not going to add a lot of commentary to it. Very simple point. And I think we'll be able to follow thought all the way through. In Matthew 7 verse 6, Jesus did not give that which only the dogs, or cast your roast swine. They ran them with their feet and turned their you to beasts. Now, how are you going to know? Speak to his disciples here. How would they know? How would we know who are dogs? Or who are hogs? How would we know? How would we be able to assess people so as to follow what Jesus taught here about not casting your pearls before certain groups of people who might turn around and tear you up in the process? How are we to go about doing that? Well, you have to make a judgment. I'm not saying judge somebody's heart, but we are fruit inspectors. Jesus taught us to observe the tree and the fruit. You have to make a choice based on that. So here's an example of when Jesus taught us, there are certain things you ought not do. And in so doing, then you're going to have to make some judgments. And while we're at Matthew 7, beginning in verse 15, the Lord said, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravening wolves." Now, how am I going to know who's a false prophet? Well, I have to listen to his words, and I have to make certain assessments based on what I hear. And then Jesus continues here, "You will know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them." That's a very simple principle. But in order for me to obey that, I have to make certain judgments. Be they righteous judgments, in order for me to follow the teaching of my Lord. Judge not according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment. In 1 Corinthians 6, in verses 1 through 3, Paul dealt with a problem, the church of Corinth, where brethren were going to law with one another and dragging their problems into human courts to try to settle issues. Paul, being exasperated by that, said, "Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unrighteous and not before the saints? Do you not know that the saints will judge the world? And if the world will be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Do you not know that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life?" Now, I don't know how saints will judge the world unless it's how we stand in contrast to the world that we judge the world. I don't know. Paul didn't go into detail about that. I don't know how saints are to judge angels. All of that's above my pay grade. But Paul's point here, that we do make judgments in matters that pertain to this world. We have to make righteous judgments, decisions, follow through with it. Not judgment based on appearance, but righteous judgment. In Galatians 6 and verse 2, "Brethren, if a man is overtaken in a trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." How are we to know when someone is overtaken in a trespass? Well, they might come to you and talk to you about it, or they might not. So how are you to know? By righteous judgment. Are you judging this person censoriously? No. Are you condemning them? Hopefully not. But you have to make a righteous judgment if someone is overtaken in a sin, not to condemn them, but to help them. Because that's your obligation as a Christian, to bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And in order for us to do that, we have to make righteous judgments. In Ephesians 5 and verse 11, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. How am I going to know what are the unfruitful works of darkness if I don't make righteous judgments along those lines? There's no way. In John chapter 8, Jesus was presented with the case of a woman who was caught in adultery. The accusers said in the very act of it, and they brought her to him, asking what should they do. Saying the law of Moses says such a person should be stoned. What do you say? And Jesus stooped down on the ground and wrote in the dirt as though he didn't hear them. In verse 7, he stood up and said, "He who is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone." And then he stooped back down and wrote on the ground again. That's an amazing thing. And when they heard that, they were struck in their consciences, and every one of them walked away till there was nobody left. And Jesus stood up again. The woman was the only one standing there. He said, "Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." He said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Now, Jesus did not approve her sin. He didn't gloss over anything. He didn't say, "I forgive you," because she didn't ask to be forgiven. All he said, "Go and sin no more." He said, I know that you can rise above what you are. And I'm appealing to you to go and do that. We can all rise above what we are. And Jesus exercised righteous judgment in doing this. I can learn something from it. How often, how many times have we said something and in our heart of hearts, hoping that we will not be harshly judged as a result of it? How many times have we said something stupid that really, if we had taken the time to think about it, should have had a little bit more thought behind it, more sensitivity behind it, more honesty, more truth? But yet, we're all human and we all fail. And because we do things of that nature, we hope and pray. Even though our words are ill-chosen and we know better, we don't always do better, we just hope that we'll not be judged too harshly for that, because the Lord will forgive us. And we just appeal to others to do the same thing. And we owe it to others. We owe it to everybody else. Not to judge by appearance, but judge righteous judgment. And that means that you might have to rebuke a person, or it might mean you need to lift them up, encourage them, say, "That's okay. It's okay. We are brethren, and we'll work together." So Jesus said, judge not according to appearance. He's quoting Samuel there. 1 Samuel 16:5, I think it is. But judge righteous judgment. And we have to make a judgment. You have to judge your life in relationship to the truth and let your steps follow in relationship to what the Lord would have you to do. And tonight, I'm going to appeal to you. Get your life right with God. God is our judge. We'll all stand before Him one day. The judgment bar of God will be there. Nobody will be absent. And we won't appeal to anybody but God. And He'll open the books. And we'll be judged by the things written therein. And we better be right before Him when that time comes. Maybe tonight you need to make that preparation. Maybe you need to obey the gospel. Maybe you need to turn your life around to be restored. Come back to your Lord. While we stand, while we sing to encourage you.